Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Corner Live on YouTube. It has felt like a very long time since we were live on the channel. I hope you guys had a fantastic summer holiday. You know, it was it about 4 or 5 weeks ago when the Euros was on? It was feels like ages ago, doesn't it, when we had the Euros on? But we're back with the channel. Of course, new season now means new opportunities, new shows, new different things on the channel. So before we start with what is a new show, of course, we just want to say welcome back, as I said a moment ago. And mainly, if you are wondering where the watch-alongs are, which is something that is quite notorious for the channel, watch-alongs won't specifically be back, I would say, until around about September, October time. The reason why is because all of us haven't got access to the streams that we usually do until around about September, October time. So in terms of watch-along content, I don't think there'll be a great deal, if any, watch-alongs on the channel until then. So we should roughly be back with watch-alongs, I would say, for around about the first match day of the Champions League, which isn't too bad, to be fair. But yeah, we do apologise. It does mean for the next month, maybe less than 2 months, we might just not really have any watch-alongs. But it does also mean we've got some new content coming on the channel. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to be doing over the next month or two, kind of taking a foothold of the channel. We might have some of the other guys, the likes of Rowan and both the Kierans, at some point doing stuff as well. But it's more likely to be a lot of content that I'm going to be doing for now until we're all back together again, which, as I said, is around about the end of September, October. So once we're all back together again, we'll be back to normal on the channel. There will be watch-alongs, as I said, but not as many as we did last year. Of course, the reason why we did so many last year is because of COVID and lockdowns. You know, we had as much opportunities to do as many watch-alongs as we wanted to because of lockdown and things like that. Of course, now the world, or at least the UK specifically, is getting back to normal. It means that there's going to be less time for us to do watch-alongs. So there won't be as many, but we're still going to be doing the Champions League goal shows and Europa League goal shows and things like that. Just not as many league watch-alongs as we had last year, because, you know, we had like 3, 4, 5 watch-alongs sometimes a day. Maybe over-exaggerating a little bit, but it won't be as many as that. We might have like 1 watch-along a day, and then, of course, the other European shows in between. But it's time to go on to the show and quickly just say hello to all you guys. It's been a long time, hasn't it? It's been ages since we were last on the channel. The last video I did was the darts, wasn't it? The World Match Play, which feels like a long time ago. But Winvow is in the building. Welcome back, Winvow. Hope you're all good, as always. Reese is in the building. How are you doing, Reese? Hope you're all good. It's been a while. How are you keeping? Not too bad. Not too bad. It's been quite a boring summer, if I'll be honest with you. Not really done much, to be honest. But I am all good indeed. And hopefully you guys are all good as well. Chris is in the building. How are we doing? Isn't this a lovely sight? It's great, isn't it, to be back? Absolutely fantastic indeed. Kyle putting, hey, Josh and all. Felt like ages since I last saw you. It has genuinely been a long time. In fact, just looking now on the channel to see how long it is since we last did a video, it was a month ago, and probably a little bit over a month since we did a video. But it's nice to be back. And then Chris saying, I feel sorry for Peter. He seems to have disappeared after he said it's coming home. Well, I think we've all forgot about that now. Or at least some of us might. Maybe Peter hasn't. But welcome along to the new show. This is Around the World in 80 minutes. One of the brand new shows on the channel. Something that I'm going to be doing over the next few months or weeks at the very least, and even after that. Once we're back to normal again, this is something I want to do a little bit more. As he says in the title, we are going around the world in 80 minutes. Think of this as like the Statman Dave, Hugh Wizzy type show. We're going to analyse the weekend's action. We're going to analyse yesterday's big game. Of course, you can see somebody on the screen on the left-hand side that didn't play well yesterday. This is a really good chance for me to just kind of let out my inner thoughts on different games and things. And I don't really have to kind of... Is it not professional? Because he's going to be a little bit professional, but more of an opportunity to rant and analyse games as we go along. But around the world in 80 minutes, you know, you've got the 5 main leagues of football. Of course, they're not all back yet. I believe Serie A isn't back for another week or two. So we are pretty much down to 4 main leagues for now. But we'll be covering the 5 main leagues of football on top of some of the biggest games across world football that maybe some of you guys aren't aware of. Yes, this kind of is a little bit like the old podcast that we used to do, but it's condensed down to 80 minutes, and you get to listen to me rant about certain topics. So sit back, relax, enjoy. And as I said, we're going to go through yesterday's games first, which we did have two very big games yesterday. One on the right-hand side, which was the Bayern Munich Gladbach match. Very enjoyable game for those of you that maybe did watch, of course, in the UK, now on Sky Sports. And then on the left-hand side, we had the game which I certainly watched, which was an absolute shit show. And for those of you wondering as well, Arsenal and Leeds are playing. It is 1-0 to Manchester United and Leeds are playing. It is 1-0 to Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes has just scored in that game. And talking about that, on the bottom of your screen as well, we'll have the top matches of the day going across your screen. I will just put that, of course, it is 1-0 to Manchester United in that game. So we will talk about those games a little bit later on. As we always do on the channel, it is very, very nice when you guys put your thoughts and opinions and your questions in the chat. And because it has been a long, long time, if you've got any questions today over anything that's happened in the last month or beyond, whatever you've got to ask me in the chat, then please do put your thoughts and opinions, because a lot has happened in the last month. We've had certain ridiculous signings, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and just some bonkers stuff in football. But we'll go through all that in a moment. I know Reeza's just put in the chat, anyone got the beta thoughts? I have got the beta, but it was for career mode and kickoff, so I've not actually touched it yet. I'll wait until they open all the modes up and then I'll play it. But for now, can't really say I've really touched it, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, let's start off with what was yesterday's action. I'm going to try and condense this down to an hour and 20, so I am going to rush through some things. But I have to say, we've got to start off with the first game yesterday. We have to. Arsenal-Brentford, Premier League, first match of the season. Of course, a lot of people expecting Arsenal to have an absolute meltdown. And lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. Sergi Canos scoring the first goal of the game, an absolutely brilliant strike from a player who I think has got a lot of quality about him and is a very, very underappreciated footballer. Maybe not underappreciated at Brentford, but very underappreciated for the talent that he's got and what he did bring to the Championship last season. Somebody who isn't really scared to have a shot from long range and put the ball into the back of the net. And what I do want to do, and what we are going to be doing quite a lot throughout this series, is we will be using who scored and things like that, so we can really go over all the different things that have happened roughly in these games, and we can talk through the tactics and really analyze the match overall. So this is who scored right now. I'm just going to very quickly sort the screen out slightly so you can see a little bit more. There we go. Just a shame I can't actually put this full screen without me. Let me see if I can do that. Can you guys hear me? Because if you can, then that's not too bad. If you can't, then that's going to be a bit of a problem. I don't want that. There we go. I'll have it like that for now. But this was, I think, a game yesterday which really didn't surprise me as much as I think most people were expecting. You know, as I said before, a lot of people, I did think, went into this game with the full expectation that Brentford could get a result against Arsenal. And you can hear me, which is brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. Greatly appreciated for putting that in the comments. And do tell me what you thought of this game between Brentford and Arsenal, because, as I said before, I personally think this was one of those matches where Brentford, going into a new stadium, going into a new season in the Premier League, I think it's the first time in, I think it was 74 years, in which Brentford hadn't played in the top flight of football. And, you know, when it has been that long, just think of how many people were in that stadium yesterday experiencing Premier League football for the first time. You know, I think there would be probably less than 3 digits, maybe 2 digits worth of people who were in that stadium that could say they were there when Brentford last played in the Premier League. And what a performance they put in. I mean, Thomas Frank had already got a brilliant side. And when you look over the last 2 or 3 years of this Brentford team, Brentford have always looked like a side which will eventually go up, you know, in the end. You know, we saw them not last year, the year before, when they lost in the playoff final to Fulham. That they were a very good squad then. It was a really bad defensive mistake from David Raya with a free kick, and it just all crumbled from that point. And I think a lot of people expected Brentford to just go straight up after that. A lot of the danger teams, I guess you could say, the likes of Leeds and Fulham and that, they'd already gone up. So Brentford were kind of the one team with the shining light of the Championship that most people expected to go up, which they did. And of course, what a performance against Arsenal yesterday. Do put your thoughts and opinions in the chat. I want to go through the teams. As I said before, Brentford playing a 3-5-2, a formation which they have typically used, and a very organised side they are under Thomas Frank. I think somebody was making a very good point yesterday on Arsenal Fan TV. It's a formation that these players are used to, a formation that these players prefer to play in. And most importantly, it's a fluid formation which can be transitioned into many different tactical formations. You know, you can play it to a 5-back if you want to, and have Sergi Canos and Henry as the two full-backs, and you can have it as a 5-back if you need. You could obviously play it, I think you could, if you wanted to, play it as a 4-back formation. A little bit awkward because you have got 3 centre-backs, but I'm pretty sure Pinnock has played as a full-back before, can do that job very well. So you could play it as a 4-back if you wanted to, and have them Burma in behind Tony. But I think what they've got there is a brilliant formation that works perfectly well. And I want to give credit, not to Sergi Canos, because I think Sergi Canos played brilliantly last night. I think you could arguably say deserved man of the match. 8.7 rating on Who Scored that brilliant goal. But I think you have to give credit to this man, Ivan Toney. What a player he is. Scored 33 goals, I think it was last season in the Championship, which was a record as well for most goals in the Championship in a season, which is absolutely incredible. And look, it's only game 1 of the season. There's a long, long way to go before we sit here and make opinions on what players are going to do at this club and what they're going to do in the Premier League. At the end of the day, I think, look at Pukki for an example. When Pukki came into the Premier League in his first season at Norwich, he had that first kind of 2 or 3 game spell where he played brilliantly well, and everybody thought, right, here we go. We've got a player on our hands here. And then he fizzled out. I don't think Tony's going to do that. I think Tony's one of those players that can bully defences really, really well. He's quick, he's strong, he's aggressive. And what he brings to this Brentford side is an energy and a tenacity that I think somebody like Pukki doesn't have. Pukki's a very good finisher, but he doesn't have pace, he doesn't have skills. He's not a physically combative player. He's just a kind of a poacher who can get into the box and put the ball in the back of the net. While Tony, he has that physical presence about him, which I think will massively, massively help Brentford this season. And I'm really excited to see how he does across the whole of the season. And hopefully, I would love to see Brentford do well, although I am a little bit worried in certain aspects of their play. But looking at what you guys have said, we'll come on to the other side in a moment. Arsenal, I've got a lot to say about them, which is why I'm kind of quickly glancing over Brentford as a team. But Chris saying Brentford deserved the win. Arsenal didn't deserve anything, in my opinion. I've got to agree with you on that. I will say, of course, what I think about Arsenal in just a moment's time. Kyle saying, saw the highlights. Brilliant win for Brentford. Same old poor defending by Arsenal. You are spot on, Kyle. I don't think you really needed to see the game to see the clear problems that Arsenal have got. Reece saying, I think Tierney and Smith Rowe were impressive, but Arsenal were poor. Peter's in the building. How are we doing, Peter? You're good, my friend. He says, I'm here. Don't worry. I've not disappeared. Good to see everybody back in the chat as always. So is Jamie as well. He loves to sit back with a popcorn and enjoy all of the drama in the chat. I think we all do. And then Chris saying, Peter is here with rope tied between his legs. It's always nice to have you back in the chat. A month has passed and it's still the same old Chris and Peter. We love it. No, jokes aside though, I think we've got to go on to Arsenal. I could sit here and I could analyse this game for hours, if I'm being honest with you. I could sit here and talk about this game for a good hour plus. But I've tried to condense it down, hence why it's called Around the World in 80 Minutes. So I don't waffle on about games for too long. We are going to have another show in the future, which I'm going to be doing called The Morning After, which we will do probably in the next week or two. It'll be after a big game, of course, as the title says. And that's when we'll really analyse a match in full detail, and we'll go through it properly in that show the morning after, which, as I said, I'm going to do that one. And it's going to be a morning show, as you would expect. But Arsenal have got so many problems. So many problems. When you look at this team, first of all, before the game started, we heard Aubameyang and Lacazette were both out, which, there wasn't much said about why they were out. It was just that they're ill. And I think Arteta was asked after the game what the illness is, and he didn't really give any indication to what the problem was for both of them, which is a bit worrying to me. I think I don't like managers who are very repressed on their thoughts and opinions, and they don't really like to tell anybody what's going on. Rafa Benitez is a great example of a manager who is probably the most pointless person to ever have a press conference because he doesn't like telling the press information. And I think Arteta has a little bit of that in him. And I think Arsenal fans have a right to be frustrated at not knowing why they're both out. And I guess we will find out in the near future what's wrong with them. But when you look at this team, 4-2-3-1 for Arsenal, it's not a strong side. I think somebody made the point, it does look like a cup team. If this was to play against West Brom, I think on Sunday or whenever they play in the Carabao Cup, that's the type of team you would expect to play against West Brom, not against Brentford in the Premier League. And again, look, there are certain points of this team where there's not much Arsenal can do. Let's not forget, I think Willian is out ill, but I don't think anybody cares about Willian, to be honest. The two forwards were out. A couple of players, I think, might still be out because of international duty. I'm clutching at straws, if I'm being honest with you. But they play with the 4-2-3-1. Leno in goal. The back four of Tierney on the left, Chambers on the right, with Pablo Mari and Ben White, who I've got to say, I bloody feel sorry for him, making his debut for Arsenal. Two midfielders, you've got Granit Xhaka, who is about to sign a new contract with Arsenal, of course. Kieran will be very happy about that. And Samuel Lokonga, new signing from Anderlecht, as the two holding midfielders. Martinelli on the left-hand side, Nicolas Pepe on the right-hand side, with Emil Smith-Rowe the number 10, new shirt, of course, for him, or new number at the very least. And then Balogun up top. Of course, I would assume that was a very last-minute move to put Balogun up top. I don't think Arteta really knew much about Aubameyang and Lacazette being injured, which would make it even worse if he did. And, when you go through this team, I think, first of all, I don't want to sit here and I don't want to slag off Balogun, for example. I think Balogun's one of those players that has an incredible amount of potential to him. He, to me, is a better player than Nketiah is right now. I think he will potentially be better than Nketiah. But I just think Balogun right now is not one of the players who I want to sit there and slag off because ultimately, again, I just think he was dropped in the squad last minute and there's not really much you could do about it. What I do want to talk about is the back line first. Let's start off with Leno. The second goal, I think there was a lot of Arsenal fans, or just a lot of fans in general. I don't want to sit there and say a lot of Arsenal fans, but there were a lot of people who were demanding that it was a free kick given for the second goal. It's just Leno being terrible. And this is a big, big problem for Arsenal because when you look on the bench and you look at who could take the position of Leno in goal, he doesn't have anyone who can take his position. There is no pressure on Bernd Leno whatsoever to go out there and expect his position to be rivaled. When you look at other clubs, they've got decent enough keepers who could come in and do a good job. For example, Man United today, they've got Henderson and Heaton, two good goalkeepers that could come in, do a good job. Manchester City, they've got Zach Steffen, who can come in, do a decent job. Liverpool, maybe not as such. I think Liverpool fans will say Adrian is terrible. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Any other teams that have got good keepers? Chelsea, Mendy and Kepa. Yes, Kepa has his issues at times, but he's still good enough to come in and do a good job as we saw in the Super Cup. Leno has no pressure on him. Leno has, endless possibilities of being selected in this side. Unless he's injured, he's always going to be in this team no matter what. And we know Arsenal, they are trying to get a keeper. They were looking at trying to sign Aaron Ramsdale from Sheffield United. That deal doesn't look like it's going to be happening now, purely because of discrepancies between two clubs on the actual transfer fee. There was calls to bring Onana in. Of course, Onana from Ajax. Again, they aren't, what I know of, going for him because he's actually out suspended till 2022 because of a drugs issue or something stupid like that happened at Ajax, which has basically suspended him until next year. They were looking at Sam Johnston, but it looks like he's now signing a new contract at West Brom. So if Arsenal do want to sign a keeper, they're going to have to sign someone very quick. When you look at the back four, I think Callum Chambers, for me, he's not an Arsenal player. I think he is a player who could do a good job at a Newcastle or maybe a Watford. A team lower down in the league would do a decent job at Callum Chambers. He had a stinker yesterday, and it proves to me why Arsenal really do need to sort out their problems quick, because they've got 4 right-backs, let's not forget. 4 right-backs. If you want to include Chambers in there, there's 1 right-back. You've got Bellerin, you've got Cedric, and you've got Ainsley Maitland-Niles. They have 4 potential right-backs, and the one that they chose was the centre-back to put in the right-back position. So again, that proves to me another problem for Arsenal. The lack, and it sounds bad to say, the lack of choice in the right-back position is something that they haven't even got. They've got plenty of players who can come on in that position and do very well. They've got Tavares as well, who can also play as a right-back. Tavares, who could play as a right-back. So technically, you could say they've got 5 options of players they could bring on. And for me, Chambers, again, is another weak spot in the Arsenal team. I don't want to slag off Ben White. I think he had a stinker yesterday. But I think everybody had a stinker yesterday for Arsenal, if I'm being honest with you. I don't really think any player can come out of that game and say they had a great match. Paulo Mari, again, don't really want to slag him off a great deal. I think he had a bad game last night. But look, again, another player I don't think is of a massive quality for Arsenal. A good enough player to have off the bench. Tierney last night, I think that was probably one of Tierney's worst games in an Arsenal shirt. WhoScored's given him a 6.9, which is the second highest rated player on the pitch. So even then, what for me was his worst game, he's still one of the better players on the pitch. But yeah, Tierney last night didn't play great. Good attacking threat in the first half, weak in the second half. Lokonga, I don't want to slag him off. Emil Smith-Rowe as well, don't want to slag him off. At the end of the day, there's players there I don't want to sit there and slag off. I just think Arsenal have got massive, massive problems. And what I do want to do is I want to very quickly change the screen up and just show you what Arsenal's transfer business has been. And of course, we've only got about 2 weeks of the window left, let's not forget. Time is running out, and Arsenal do need to sort their problems out, and very, very quickly, because at the end of the day, right now, 2 weeks is not a long time to do business in the world of sports. In terms of transfer deadline day as well, we might be covering it. Don't know how it's going to happen because we're not all together. It might just be me covering it, who knows. But Arsenal's business in the transfer window, Ben White coming in for 52 million. I don't think that was the right price to pay for him. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Ben White. And after that first game, I really do feel sorry for him because that is a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And that's not really fair for a 23-year-old kid. Same with Lokonga, £16 million. I actually think he's a great signing. A very, very good player. Confident is what I've seen so far from him in pre-season. And in that first match, didn't play amazing in that first game of the season. But I don't want to be sitting there and slagging off a 21-year-old who's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Nuno Tavares as well. $7 million from Benfica, another 21-year-old player. Again, didn't really do much in the game, only came on as a substitute. Fair dues, not really going to say much about him. But apart from that, Arsenal have so many positions that they need to strengthen on. They've let Willett go, 26 million to Newcastle. Guendouzi and Saliba on loan to Marseille. David Luiz left. They didn't replace Odegaard, Ceballos or Ryan. Technically, they did replace Ceballos with Lokonga, but they haven't got an attacking midfielder, and that is the biggest problem for me. Emil Smith-Rowe is a great player, and he's going to be a fantastic number 10 for Arsenal. But in terms of squad depth afterwards, they don't have anybody, in my personal opinion, on the bench who could play as a number 10 or play in that kind of central attacking midfield role and do a good job for them. And that, for me, is a position which Arsenal do need to improve on. and very, very quickly. You know, there are in talks, apparently, to sign Odegaard up on a permanent. I don't think Real Madrid want him. So they could pay, I think it was like a 40, 50 million euro fee to bring Odegaard back. And I think, you know, he's a great player, Odegaard. A lot of potential still in him. He's a very young kid still. You know, he's been around the blocks for a long time, but he's still very young. And I think he would be a great fit to come back into that Arsenal side and just bring a bit of creativity, because what Arsenal do lack is they lack creativity in the final third, and that's what they need right now. You know, Martinelli, you can't be putting pressure on this young Brazilian kid's shoulders. You know, let's not forget, he's actually only just come back from the Olympics as well, and it's just been slotted straight into the squad. So again, he's probably still going to be a little bit tired from the burnout of the Olympics. Nicolas Pepe, he's a decent player on his day. Just don't think he's worked out at Arsenal so far. Very disappointing for the amount of money that they've spent on him. Not great in the final third. Decision-making is a little bit poor at times. Again, not the creative player that Arsenal need right now, or is somebody who's going to really bolster them. I just don't think he's going to improve much, Pepe. And what we've got right now is the Pepe that Arsenal are probably going to have forever. So they really do need somebody in that final third to really change the game up. You know, they've been in talks apparently with Maddison. Would be a great deal, of course. Big money, though, with him being English and from Leicester. Odegaard, big money again, 40, 50 million euros. It's going to cost whatever they want in terms of that, you know, attacking midfielder position. It's going to cost big money. Are Arsenal going to spend big money by the end of the window? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We'll have to see. Of course, they've got 2 weeks to do that. But I personally think they need an attacking midfielder. I personally think they might need a right back. You know, Bellerin is supposed to be one of the players potentially out of the door soon. So I still do think they need a right back, because Cedric is not strong enough to be an Arsenal starter. I think he's a decent backup option, not a good starter. So right back, again, is another position that they might need to sign. And then, as we said before, of course, a backup keeper is another position that they need to get. And hopefully, we'll see a bit more business done before the end of the window for Arsenal. But looking at what you guys have been saying in the chat, of course, I said before, do put your thoughts and opinions in the stream of what you think about that game between Brentford and Arsenal yesterday. Chris, of course, saying it's a freak show at Arsenal right now. I put them to finish 10th. That's me being nice to them. He also said Chambers is not a right back. They need a right back, as I was saying before. Need to improve the midfield. Definitely do. Arsenal need leaders too. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think you look at this Arsenal team, there are a lot of youngsters in there. I just don't think they've got really a leader in the team right now. You know, Xhaka is the captain again. There's a lot of Arsenal fans in disarray about that after what happened when he was the captain last time. But I do think they need somebody with a bit of experience and quality, and somebody who could be a good leader that could come into that Arsenal side and really roughen up some of these players. Because I think a lot of them right now have got it very, very easy indeed. And then Chris did say, Arsenal squad is so weak. The strength is the attack when everyone is fit. I just think the problem is as well with Arsenal's attack is when everybody's fit, they're all never really in form at the same time. You know, Lacazette can be in form and then Aubameyang and Saka aren't. Saka can be in form and then Aubameyang's off. There needs to be that point where the three players click up front and then they can really get themselves going. And I predicted, I think, for Arsenal this season, 7th. If they brought in a creative midfielder, I said, look, maybe they could push up the table a little bit. But right now, there's a lot of work to be done in this Arsenal side, that's for sure. And again, you know, I could sit here and talk about Mikel Arteta and complain about him and things like that. But I will leave that for another day. We will move away from the Brentford-Arsenal game now because we're already nearly about half an hour into this stream. And we will look very quickly over one of the games that we had yesterday in the Bundesliga. Of course, it's not just the Premier League, which has started up this week. It is the Bundesliga as well. And yesterday's game between Gladbach and Bayern Munich was the opening fixture of the season. It was the first time in the Bundesliga's history where the opening game with the champions wasn't played in the home ground. It was played away from home at Borussia Park, a fantastic stadium that Gladbach had. And a really nice opening ceremony as well. It felt really, really nice to watch. Very enjoyable indeed. And what a game it was. Bayern Munich, of course, new manager in charge of the club, Julian Nagelsmann, formerly of RB Leipzig. We've known for a long, long time that he was going to be coming into Bayern Munich. as their manager, and now the youngest manager in German football, is now in charge of the biggest club in German football. Also, there was a new manager in charge of Gladbach as well, Adi Hutter, former Frankfurt boss, got them to the top 6 last season in the Europa League. Very looking forward, actually, to seeing how Frankfurt do in the Europa League next season. I believe they are there, if I'm correct. But the Bundesliga have had a lot of managers moving about. And in fact, I believe 90% of the teams have got new managers this season in charge of the club. And we're going to very quickly glance over this game. Not going to be as long, of course, as what we just had a moment ago with the Arsenal match. Not really as much to analyse in this game. But what did interest me was Bayern Munich's formation. Now, Bayern, of course, have always played a 4-back formation. Very rare to play 5-back. Very, very rare to play 3-back. It's very, very rare that they play 3-back at all because they've got brilliant fullbacks and the likes of Davies and, of course, Kimmich when they need to play him as a right-back. But, of course, Julian Nagelsmann, the way that he played at Leipzig was always that 3/5-back formation. He would have Angelino as one of his fullbacks, who would always play either as a wide left midfielder or as a wing-back. And he hasn't gone for that formation with Bayern. He's sticking to the strengths of the club, going with the 4-2-3-1, which is the usual formation which Bayern would play under their former manager, of course, who has just moved to the German national team now. But 4-2-3-1, not many changes in the side to what you would usually expect from Bayern. Of course, Lewandowski up top, Sane, Muller, Gnabry, the usual names in the team. Although a lot of them weren't fully fit. A lot of them being at the Euros, of course, coming back, having a bit of a holiday. So I think quite a few of them have only had about a week or weeks and a half of actual training before being slotted into the squad. So a lot of trust from Nagelsmann, of course, to put these guys back into the side. And you can also see as well Gladbach matching Bayern Munich up. 4-2-3-1 from them today, or yesterday at the very least when the game was played. Sommer in goal had a brilliant performance, didn't he, at the Euros with Switzerland. Continued that on with a brilliant performance against Bayern Munich. Arguably for me, the man of the match of the game. Made some wonderful saves, continuing on his form from where he left off after saving Mbappe's penalty in that incredible, incredible game at the Euros. I arguably think that was the best game of the tournament by a country mile. But when you look at this team, there are a few very noticeable players from that Gladbach side. And I want to particularly point out this young kid, Mr. Joe Scally. What a player this guy is. He's only, 18? Very, very young player. His first competitive match as a Gladbach player. And he played fantastically well. Really, really did a good job against Bayern Munich. When you're coming up against the likes of Gnabry, Muller and Sane, when they're running at you, Gnabry and Sane have got bundles of pace. They've got skills. They've got tenacity. It can be very, very pressurizing to come up against players of high quality. But, Scally, he did very, very well coming into that side. Had a brilliant pre-season at Gladbach. Adi Hutter, of course, putting his trust into the American youngster to come into this competitive match and give Bayern Munich a good game. And he certainly did. He kept calm and composed. Got, of course, Bayern Munich no win in their first game of the season, which is, funnily enough, only the third time that Bayern Munich haven't won a game in the first match of the season. And the other 2 games were against Gladbach. So it's a bit of a running feat of history between those 2 sides when they play against each other in the first game of the season, where Bayern Munich don't win. And again, it's happened for the 3rd time in a row. But big credit to Scally. Of course, coming in from the MLS, there's a lot of players coming in from America that are coming over to the Bundesliga. Of course, Alphonso Davies was one of them, who came a few years ago from Vancouver Whitecaps, coming to Bayern Munich, and he's now one of the best left-backs in world football. So if we're going based on that, maybe Joe Scally could join him as one of the best left-backs in world football in the future, but we'll have to find out with that, of course. First goal of the game came from Alisson Play. It was a very good game overall for Alisson Play, the Frenchman. Got an injury in pre-season, was lucky enough to come back after recovering from his injury against Metz in pre-season. And eventually it was a counter-attacking goal from Gladbach. Lovely composed finish from Alisson Play, making it 1-0. And then, of course, the man who scored 41 goals last season got his first on the board, Robert Lewandowski. Brilliant performance from him again. Again, another player who didn't really have much time in this team because of being at the Euros with Poland. Only came back recently after his summer holiday. But he's up and running for the season. He just needs 40 more goals to match the 41 that he got last season to break the record of Gerd Muller, of course. But a very good game overall. We will talk about the other games coming up a little bit later on. But what we are going to do is just have a quick look as well at what is to come, I think, over the next 24 hours of football, because it's quite easy to realistically talk over 3 or 4 different games and then the show there. But I think we've got the other games coming up today, and then we've got the games coming up tomorrow as well. And the first game I want to talk about involves this man, Mr. Rafa Benitez. First game in charge of Everton. They're up against Southampton in about an hour and a half's time. First game of the season, of course. And I'm just very quickly going to move from the screen of Rafa Benitez to the screen of Who Scored and show you roughly what they think today Rafa Benitez is going to play with. 4-4-2, their thinking, is the possible lineup for Everton today. And Rafa Benitez was not the first choice, was he? If we're being honest with you, for Everton fans to become the manager. Has a lot of history with Liverpool, of course, getting them the Champions League against AC Milan a few years ago. Feels like a long time ago, that. But he's come to Everton now. Had a few years of disappointing spells. You know, he was at Dalian Pro in China, where he struggled massively. Big financial issues in China, of course, heavily affecting a lot of clubs. Dalian Pro were one of them who had to sell off most of their players because of financial issues. Rafa Benitez leaving the club. Had a time at Newcastle where, again, you know, when he was at Newcastle, you could arguably say did a decent job with them. Stayed when they got relegated, got them promoted again. Never was really able to take them to the fullest heights, but I don't really blame Rafa Benitez for that whatsoever. But he's come to Everton. It's going to be an interesting atmosphere at Goodison Park, and I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of excited to see what the atmosphere is like. A lot of fans saying they're not looking forward to the game today. A lot of fans saying they're going to boo Rafa. There was a lot of chance, actually, at the last pre-season match that they had, which was against Manchester United, in which a lot of Everton fans were calling him the fat Spanish waiter. Typical joke, of course, for Rafa Benitez. But what does Rafa bring to Everton? What positives are there that Rafa can bring to this club? And, you know, in these games where they are going to play against the likes of Southamptons and the Villas and the West Hams, you know, the teams around them that are going to try and fight for European football or the top 6 or the top 8 or whatever you want to class these sides as what they're going to be fighting for. I think Rafa Benitez is still a very good manager. I don't think he's as good as what he used to be. That's obviously understandable, considering the drop-off in the nature of the clubs that he's managed. But I do think Rafa could do a better job than what Ancelotti did. And that's not saying that he's not a better manager than Ancelotti. I just think Everton last season, they were fantastic in the first quarter. You know, at one point they were sat top of the league, in the top 4 for large parts. Then they dropped off. Then they got good again. They got towards the top 4. We were thinking maybe Everton about to make the Champions League for the first time in what feels like forever. And then they just dropped off massively. There was that real big dip at the end of the season where they dropped off and then they didn't get anything at all. And again, another season without European football for Everton is damaging for a club that has spent over £500 million since Farhad Moshiri took over the club a good couple of years ago. But, you know, Everton, I wouldn't get too excited about any attacking football. He's a very, very disciplined, reassured, physical manager when it comes to his teams on the pitch. When you look at Newcastle, he didn't have a great deal of money to spend. He's not had a great deal of money to spend at Everton, and that's because they've had FFP issues that they're trying to sort out. They are trying to bring in a few players, but again, because of financial fair play, they've got to sort those problems out first before they can make signings. But he's a very physical manager. I would expect the likes of Allen and Decore, Richarlison, those types of players to really heavily feature in Rafa Benitez's squads. Players who've got good physical abilities about them. They're strong. Gabarin as well is another one which I'll talk about in a second. But players who are strong, physical, can hold off other players. They're not afraid to go in for a tackle, push players off the ball. That's the Rafa Benitez side. And that's what I would expect him to do. You know, he'll have probably, I think, a midfield free, as we've just had a goal, by the way, in the Leeds game, and it's an absolute cracker from Luke Ayling. It's 1-1 in the game, and that's an absolutely class finish from Luke Ayling from outside the box. But he will bring a lot of physical prowess to this Everton side, which maybe I think they were missing under Ancelotti. I think Ancelotti had a very weak midfield, played Tom Davies and Andre Gomez a lot, didn't really have that physical presence in there. While I can see with Everton now, I would guess that they'll go for a a 4-back formation with a 3 in midfield. And I think they will go Allen, Decore, and Gabamin. And the last one excites me because we know of Gabamin. He signed a few years ago for Everton, has had a lot of injuries that have kept him out for a long amount of time. He's back now. Hopefully, touch wood, he stays fit and he doesn't get any injuries or any serious ones or anything like that. But I think that midfield for Everton could do very, very good. I think Decore, when he was at Watford, was a great player. And I think when he has gone to Everton, he's done a very good job. I think Allen, who came in last season from Napoli, is a quality player on his day. I think he could arguably go into most teams in the Premier League midfield. And I think he's a very, very good, strong, combative player. And quite funnily enough, somebody who I'd put in the Rafa Benitez mould to go into midfield. And then, of course, Gabamin. As I said, we don't really know much about Gabamin because he's not played a great deal for Everton. But he's quick. He's got a good turn of pace. He does like to push the ball up and get the plays up the pitch. Really does love to get the ball and turn and move teams forward. In fact, I think in pre-season, he was actually playing as a number 10 at one point, which just proves how good he is when it comes to turning teams around and getting them on the front foot. And, you know, as Carla said in the chat, I like Benitez and I hope he can do well and take Everton to new heights. And I think there is a lot of pressure on him. You know, if Everton don't win, you know, let's say, I don't know who Everton have got in their first few games. I'm just going to actually have a look now to see who they've got. But for the first 5 games of the season, Everton in the Premier League have got Southampton, which is in around about an hour and 20 minutes time. They've got Southampton, Leeds, Brighton, Burnley and Villa, which I have to say is a very, very good start for Everton this season. I think that if they can get themselves 3 or 4 wins in the first 5 games, the pressure will begin to lighten a little bit on Rafa Benitez. However, I think if he doesn't win probably 1 or 2 of his first 3 games, there is going to be a lot of fans putting a hell of a lot of pressure on Benitez because he's already not liked for being a former Liverpool manager. And the real question is, will Everton fans succumb to Rafa Benitez? Will they get to a point where they appreciate him and give him the respect that he might feel he deserves? As Manchester United have just taken a 2-1 lead, by the way, in that game against Leeds. Greenwood pretty much instantly responding to the Leeds equaliser, looking like a very, very good game indeed, that one. I've got it on in the background, just watching it slightly. But yeah, Rafa Benitez going to be a very interesting manager to watch in the Premier League. And Goodison today will be a very interesting place to keep an eye out on to see the reaction of how Rafa Benitez is treated. But going very quickly, just to look at the team, who scored? Think they're going to line up with a 4-4-2. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they'll line up with a 4-3-3, and Richarlison will play as a winger. Calvert-Lewin up front. Again, who scored? Think that Allen and Decore will be in midfield, proving the physical presence that those 2 players can bring to the side. But Everton, for me, will be one of the games to watch today. Everton versus Southampton, of course. That is coming up at 3 o'clock. Just to look over the rest of the games in the Premier League today, as you can see on your screen. Burnley up against Brighton. Burnley, one of the only sides in the Premier League not to have signed anybody yet this season. Brighton, of course, could be a big season for them. They need a forward. They're looking at bringing in a couple of players still before the end of the window. That should be a very interesting game indeed, of course. Burnley, they are looking to bring in players linked with, I think it was Maxwell Cornet from Olympique Lyonnais. So Burnley, of course, got new American owners as well. So they are looking to spend big. That game, of course, coming up at 3 o'clock. Chelsea against Palace. Chelsea, of course, going to have to try and see if they can shake off any celebrations from the Super Cup as Manchester United are now 3-1 up against Leeds. Literally 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes. I believe Bruno Fernandes has just got his second goal of the game. And Manchester United looking very comfortable in that match now. But going back to Chelsea Palace, Chelsea, of course, signing Romelu Lukaku. He's not available in this game because I don't think he was registered in time for midday yesterday to play in that match today. So Romelu Lukaku, unfortunately, we won't be seeing him yet. Very excited to see what he does at Chelsea. We know he can bring 20, 30 goals to any club in world football. And it just makes Chelsea a very, very scary side to watch. But yeah, they're coming up against Crystal Palace. New manager in charge of Palace, of course, Patrick Vieira, the new man in charge of the club. A lot of players out of the door as well from Palace. They've let go the likes of Cahill, Dan Townsend, just to name a couple of players that have left the club. I'm very interested to see how Palace do. Big, big gamble to let Roy Hodgson go. But I also think it was the right gamble to let Hodgson leave. And I think now was the time for Palace to take a risk and see if they can develop themselves as a club that don't just linger around 14th, 15th and can maybe push up the league and maybe see if they can get the likes of the Europa Conference League. But yeah, Palace team to be really interested in watching this season under Patrick Vieira, who I'm a little bit worried about. He did struggle at Nice, not really got any experience in the Premier League, but it's also a very good chance for him to get that experience. And who knows, maybe Palace could do a very good job this season. So that is the game between Chelsea and Palace. That's coming up at 3 o'clock as well. Of course, we are back to 3 o'clock kickoffs in the Premier League now. COVID restrictions have gone. Leicester v Wolves. Another game which is going on at 3 o'clock in just above an hour's time. Leicester, of course, making a fair few new signings. One of them being Patson Daka of Red Bull Salzburg. Had a brilliant, brilliant season in Austria. A player that Kieran Dillon really, really likes, and no doubt he'll be keeping his eye out for him in the Premier League this season. They're coming up against a Wolves side who have a new manager in charge, Bruno Lage, taking over Nuno Espirito Santo, who has, of course, moved to Tottenham. I worry this season for Wolves. I really do. I think Wolves have got a brilliant, brilliant team in terms of attack and midfield. I just think they've got a very, very crap defence. No disrespect. I don't think Seiss and Kilman are two strong enough defenders in this league to get them to push up to the high sections. I really do think Wolves do need to get a centre-back into the club. I don't know who they get, but I just think, they've obviously got Willy Bolly who's out right now, which is a bit of a shame for them. A very good player on his day, but I still think they need a centre-back because that's, back three for me is very, very weak. And of course, they also lost Rui Patricio as well and moved to Roma. So a big loss to lose him as well. That game kicks off at 3 o'clock. As just have a look at the chat. Gavy's in the building. How are we doing, Gav? Welcome along to the stream. Hope you are all good. As always, the other game as well at 3 o'clock, Watford against Villa. Watford, of course, first game back in the Premier League since their relegation 2 seasons ago when they lost to Arsenal in what was a brilliant, brilliant game in the Premier League, last game of the season. And of course, they're coming up against a Villa side who have spent big. We know they brought in Buendia. We know that they've brought in Ings. Leon Bailey as well is another player that's coming to the club. They also brought in Tuanzebe from Manchester United. So they've spent really big Aston Villa, which is going to bring them a lot of pressure on their shoulders. No Jack Grealish, moved to Manchester City, of course. Big loss to lose him. But I think they've got a good enough squad to challenge for the top 10 this season. Dannings and Watkins up top could be a very lethal front two. Dannings a very good poacher. Watkins with the pace. Are they going to be able to put the goals in the back of the net? As for Watford, got to be honest with you, don't think Watford have made many signings this season as of yet. They brought in Peter Etebo from Stoke, good midfielder on his day. They brought in Juraj Kučka from, I think it was Parma. He's not in the team today either because I don't think he's fit. Emmanuel Dennis from Club Brugge, the Nigerian winger / striker, he came in as well. Danny Rose too. So they have made a couple of signings, but when I do look at that team, I think it's a little bit weak, Watford. I think the front three looks good. Dennis and Anders and Sarr, three very, very quick players. But ultimately, I just don't know how Watford are going to do this season. It's a very, very hard one to predict what's going to happen with them, if I'm being honest with you. But that is all of the 3 o'clock kickoffs in the Premier League today. I was going to say this lunchtime. It's about an hour and 10 minutes time. But we will go through some of the other games in a moment. As Gavin says, did you have a good break, mate? I did indeed. I had a very good break. Thank you very much for asking. And hopefully you're all good, as always, too. But let's move on now to Ligue 1. And this specific man who's about to appear on your screen in about 2 seconds' time. Who thought this was going to happen? Lionel Messi to PSG. Absolutely bonkers. One of the most ludicrous signings I think there's ever been in the history of football. It's absolutely bonkers as Manchester United are now 4-1 up. And I believe, is that a Bruno Fernandes hat-trick? I'm pretty sure. Absolutely bonkers from him. Leeds are getting ripped apart again. And 4-1 now to Manchester United. I think that is a Bruno Fernandes hat-trick. It's a very good start to life in the Premier League for Manchester United again. But let's move on to Ligue 1. Lionel Messi joining PSG. Who would have thought that was going to happen? Absolutely bonkers signing, if I say so myself. But he's not in the side today for Paris Saint-Germain, unfortunately. Of course, didn't have a pre-season. Was a free agent for quite a long amount of time. In fact, I think for at least nearly 2 months he's been a free agent, Messi. So he's obviously not been training. He's had a pretty long summer holiday. So I don't think we're going to see Lionel Messi in a Paris Saint-Germain shirt for a little while. I think we probably won't see him until after the international break has taken place. So we probably won't see him until about September time. But Paris Saint-Germain coming up against Strasbourg. Of course, Ligue 1 season starting a little bit earlier than the rest of the pack. So I think this is the second or third game of the French League season. You can see the side that Paris Saint-Germain have got. A lot of players, of course, fully fit now again to come into this side. Neymar and Di Maria aren't available for Paris Saint-Germain. Of course, again, players who were at Copa America not too long ago, so their holidays were extended a little bit. We can also see the likes of Ratti, Paredes, Marquinhos. Again, they're either the Euros or Copa America. But Paris Saint-Germain overall, you expect them to boss the league this season. I think most people are expecting them to probably win every game possible this season and absolutely batter every team left, right and centre. They come up against Strasbourg tonight. Strasbourg were almost relegated last season. They stayed up on the last day of the season in, for me, what was one of the most exciting last days of the season in European football. 6 or 7 teams could have gone down on the final day in Ligue 1. It was a very, very topsy-turvy final 2 match days of Ligue 1 action. And no doubt Strasbourg this season, they'll be hoping that they can stay up again. They've got a brilliant player in Ludovic Jorque, 6'6" Frenchman, 27 years old, scored a hell of a lot of goals last season in Ligue 1. Very good aerially and just a very, very class player. And, as I said, when you look at his history, as you can see, last season, 16 goals in 34 games. He was one of the top scorers in Ligue 1. Quite surprised, actually, he wasn't picked up by any French league clubs last season because he was a very, very good player. But he's going to be the key man for Strasbourg. Arguably, you're going to say that they'll batter them tonight, PSG, as you would expect. But should be very, very interesting when Paris Saint-Germain have a full squad. When Neymar, when Mbappe, and when Messi are all together, it should make for quite an exciting experience at the Parc des Princes. But as I said before, I don't think we're going to see that for quite a while. I wouldn't expect all of those players to be available until September time at the very least. As I said before, Messi technically hasn't had a pre-season or training at the very least, so it's going to take a little bit of time for Lionel Messi to get himself ready to get fully fit. But I mean, as you guys have been saying in the chat, I want to get your comments up very quickly. Gav saying Barcelona are in deep trouble, which we will be talking about Barcelona in a second. We've got about 25 minutes or so left of the show before we are done. And then Carl saying it's sad Messi has left Barca after how long he's been there. But that good press conference, he was overreacting, in my opinion. It was a very emotional press conference, but the tears pretty quickly dried up when the money bags of PSG came calling. But yeah, PSG versus Strasbourg, that is the game to look out for in Ligue 1 tonight, of course. We'll just very quickly glance over some of the other games going on in the rest of European football today. Looking in La Liga, of course, La Liga back underway as of yesterday. Real Madrid back in action tonight for the first time. Good chance, of course, to see David Alaba in a Real Madrid shirt. Of course, Real Madrid losing Rafael Varane and Ramos to PSG and Manchester United. So Alaba and Militao looking like the two new centre-backs of the future and the present for Real Madrid this season. Ancelotti as well, first game back in charge of Real Madrid. That's his, I think, third time now in charge of the club, or the second, I think. Of course, Bale as well could feature tonight in a Real Madrid shirt, which is very, very weird because it looked like he was on the cusp of leaving the club, but it looks like he's going to get a good chance potentially to reignite his Real Madrid career under Ancelotti, who does favour him, which is very nice to see. So that game is on tonight from 9 o'clock. Of course, you can see the rest of the games on the bottom of your screen that are coming up today, that are personally my standout fixtures to watch today. In the Bundesliga, it's a action-packed day of action, of course. First match day, so good chance to see Greuther Fürth and Bochum in action for the first time this season in the Bundesliga. But the standout game of the day in Germany is Dortmund against Frankfurt. Frankfurt, of course, getting themselves into European football next season after an incredible campaign, which almost saw them going from relegation, from relegation one season to European football the next. They're coming up against Dortmund, who have signed a few players of their own. Kobel in goal should be a very good player to keep an eye out on, the Swiss keeper. And then Daniel Marlin. You might recognise him, of course, former Arsenal man. Had a brilliant, brilliant time at PSV Eindhoven. Dortmund bringing him in, of course. They have lost Sancho, which means Marlon is going to have a bit of pressure on him to score a fair few goals this season and assists to replace all those that Sancho got Dortmund. That game coming up a little bit later on tonight. If you're in the UK, of course, Sky Sports has got all the action to come with the Bundesliga for the rest of the season, which is brilliant to see indeed. And then in terms of other standout fixtures across European football, LOSC Lille against Nice at 4 o'clock. Lille, what a game. First game of the season they had back. They were 2-0 down, won their match. I think it was it 2-2 or 3-2 in the end? They came back in their last game of this first game of the season. Of course, Lille under a lot of pressure to do very good this season. Maybe not win the league, but go out there and probably at least get the top four. Nice, again, of course, managed by the Lille manager, Christophe Galtier, of course, former Lille manager, is going to be the manager of Nice. Nice under a lot of pressure as well to perform this season. Lingering around about the mid-section of the table last season, Nice, they're going to be under some pressure to finish in the top 6, I would say, and get themselves European football under Galtier. So that is Ligue 1. And then the standout fixtures as well across the rest of European football. SC Braga against Sporting in Liga NOS at 8:30. That should be a belter of a game. Braga and Sporting, of course, always in the top 4 every season. And then, of course, you've got the rest of the leagues in world football, League 1, League 2. The mighty Millers up against Wigan in about an hour's time. Hull against QPR, that's for Mr. Kieran Lawler. Man United, of course, winning already today. And then quite a good game in League 2, Bradford versus Oldham for Rowan, of course. But that is all the action in terms of today. We're going to turn our attention now to the action coming up tomorrow, and more specifically to what is the big game of the day, as Manchester United have just made it 5-1 in their game against Leeds. I think it's Paul Pogba who's now got himself on the score sheet. Man United running riot in their game against Leeds. But we're going to move on to the big game in the Premier League tomorrow. What a game this is. You could call it the Harry Kane derby, because it might quite literally be the Harry Kane derby. Man City versus Spurs. What a game to start the season. Two sides that have got quite contrasting ideas of how the season is going to go. Tottenham, of course, under Nuno Espirito Santo. A lot of pressure on them this season to try and hold on to Kane. Manchester City looking to try and win the Premier League again, try and win the Champions League, and have spent massive money this season on Jack Grealish. Just very quickly as well, looking in the chat, do keep your comments coming in, by the way. It'd be nice to see what you guys have been saying. Gav did ask, are you doing any watch-alongs today, Josh? As Carl has put in the chat, there's going to be no watch-alongs, or not as many watch-alongs at the very least, until the near the end of September. The reason why is because I haven't actually got the streaming capabilities to watch the games right now properly for watch-alongs. So I'm going to wait until I have got the streaming capabilities for it in around about the end of September. I've got a box that I'm going to be using for it, but it doesn't basically register until about September time, so I can't use it until then. So until then, I can't really do any watch-alongs. But when I get that box and when it's all sorted, I could do watch-alongs from then. And it's same for the other guys as well. I would assume, unless any of them have got what they need to do it in terms of BT Sport and Sky and that, and if they want to do watch-alongs, then you might see a few here and there. But apart from that, as I said, I don't think we'll see many watch-alongs until the end of September. But yeah, Tottenham Man City, that is the standout game of Sunday. An absolute belter of a match this one's going to be. As I said before, big money spent from Manchester City on Jack Grealish. And all eyes will be on their new signing, Jack Grealish, who did, of course, play in the not Super Cup, in the Community Shield a few days ago in Manchester City's defeat to Leicester. And when you look at that team right now, you can quite clearly see the problem that Manchester City have got. They're without a striker. You can see with the injuries that City have got right now, it is a massive amount of injuries and plays out. Of course, Phil Foden and De Bruyne both out injured. And then Jesus, Stones, Walker, Sterling, Laporte all missing. Of course, because of Copa America and Euro 2020. So they will be back fairly soon. And this is how WhoScored are expecting both teams to line up. Manchester City expect to play Ferran Torres through the middle, which isn't a bad shout. I just think Manchester City really do need to sign a striker. I don't think Gabriel Jesus is going to be enough up top for Manchester City this season. Already lost Aguero, of course, at Barcelona now. Probably regretting that decision after Lionel Messi's departure, but that's his problem to solve. But it could be an interesting game, this one. Tottenham are probably playing Manchester City at one of the better times to play them. They're without their main keeper. They're without the first-team striker. The defence is going to be a little bit weaker. Nathan Ake, who I thought was really poor in that game against Leicester City, is going to probably be in the back four against Tottenham. So I do think Tottenham need to go out there and get a result, because this could be the best chance for them to get a result against Manchester City early on. Of course, Nuno has a very good record against City as Wolves manager. It's just whether or not he can bring that to his Tottenham side. They're expected to go with a 4-2-3-1. In terms of players out for them, not many. Christian Romero is out with an injury. Again, was at Copa America with Argentina, so might be a little bit of a while before we see him. Of course, the new signing from Atalanta, brilliant centre-back. I really rate him very highly as a defender. I think he's got some extreme qualities about him. That will be a massive bonus for Tottenham this season. And apart from that, Brian Gill from Sevilla, new signing, he's out because he was at the Olympics. And then maybe Harry Kane will be out because of everything going on with him. But there was also a chance that he was going to play in this game as well. So we will, of course, find out tomorrow whether or not he's playing indeed. But for me, I'm looking at this game. I'm thinking Tottenham, they do have a chance to win. I think, Bergwijn, Ali, Moura, Son is quite a very good front four. You could also say the same about Manchester City's front three. Mahrez been incredible last season for Manchester City. Grealish, of course, we don't know what he's going to bring to City, but we know of the qualities and his brilliant attacking capabilities that he had at Aston Villa. I think he's going to flourish very well under Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. It's just for me, I see the lack of striker as a big worry for City. And if they don't get a striker in my personal opinion, before the window shuts, if Gabriel Jesus does pick up an injury, I do worry a little bit that they're not going to score as many goals as you would like them to, or you would expect them to at the very least, without a second striker there. So that is the Tottenham-Manchester City game. That one tomorrow is the standout fixture, 4:30 kickoff on Sunday. Brilliant Super Sunday it is in the Premier League. Of course, there is another game going on tomorrow as well, which is Newcastle up against West Ham. Newcastle United fans didn't really have anything to shout about until yesterday when Joe Willock signed for them. Of course, big deal that one is, although he's not going to be able to play because he wasn't registered in time. West Ham haven't really made any signings apart from Areola from Paris Saint-Germain. Good deal that one is, of course, to bring him into the club to come up against Fabianski potentially for the number one spot. But West Ham, they are going to be under pressure this season. Got themselves European football. Still think they need to sign a striker as well. You can't rely on Mikel Antonio to do all the work up top. So I do think they need to get a striker and fairly quick. But again, West Ham, they will be expected to finish in the top 8 this season and potentially get themselves European football again. So that is the Super Sunday game between Newcastle United and West Ham. That one, of course, is tomorrow. In the Bundesliga tomorrow, 2:30, Mainz against Leipzig. Again, two teams that have changed managers. Jesse March in front of the Mainz crowd for the first time as the Leipzig manager. And then Mainz, I don't quite know who's in charge of the club, if I'm being honest with you, but I'm pretty sure they've changed their manager as well. Looking at their teams, of course, Leipzig bringing in Andre Silva, big deal that was, of course, coming in from Frankfurt. They've been missing a striker for a long time, Leipzig, who can put the ball in the back of the net. I think they might have just got their man as well. Mohamed Simakan as well, another French centre-back, looking like he's going to potentially come in and do a good job next season for Leipzig. As for Mainz, again, KD, of course, big Mainz fan, no doubt at some point this season we'll have a Mainz watch-along on the channel. They brought in Widmer from Udinese, I think it was. Very good player on the wide positions for the side. But they, again, will be expected to try and fight for survival this season. So that should be a very good game in the Bundesliga. And as well as that, Cologne against Hertha Berlin is another big game in the Bundesliga at 4:30. In Ligue 1, Angers versus Lyon. Lyon, of course, without Depay for the first time. Are they going to be able to get into the top 4 like they did last season? That game's 12 o'clock kickoff. At 7:45, Marseille against Bordeaux. Marseille, of course, Jorge Sampaoli in charge. What manager he is. Quite a few new signings as well from Marseille. Guendouzi and Saliba being two of them. Should be a very good test for them against a Bordeaux side who have got to make sure this season they do not get themselves into a relegation battle. Financial issues for them as well, which is causing them big, big problems. Could have been relegated already this season because of financial implications. They sorted their problems out, so they're all good to go this season. They might get relegated anyway, but we'll have to find out as Bordeaux take on Marseille. That's the nighttime game at 7:45 tomorrow. La Liga, let's move on to the final two games I'm going to talk about very quickly. Celta Vigo against Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid, of course, making a few big signings already this season. One of them being Rodrigo de Paul. What a player he is from Udinese. The Argentine is a baller. He's a certified baller. Absolutely class player who can bring a lot of attacking capabilities to Atletico Madrid. Of course, they're going to be under some pressure this season to retain the title. They're coming up against a Celta Vigo side that played brilliant last season, got themselves a much better finish in comparison to where they usually finished over the last couple of years. They usually used to linger around the relegation zone. They've got Iago Aspas up top, who, again, another striker who can bang in 15, 20 goals a season in La Liga. He's going to be under some pressure to go out there and put the ball into the back of the net. Again, that game between Atletico Madrid and Celta Vigo is the early kickoff, I think, on Sunday, 4:30. And then finally, we're going to the big one tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Barcelona against Real Sociedad. And who thought that the main man potentially for Barcelona was going to be Antoine Griezmann? It feels so wrong looking at a Barcelona side. And as much as I like to joke about Martin Braithwaite being one of my favourite players, it feels so wrong to look at a Barcelona side and for Lionel Messi to not be in the team. Of course, Barcelona, full of financial implications right now. They've had to get a lot of their players off the books. They've had to ask a lot of their players to have wage cuts. I know PK's just taken a massive wage cut as well. And ultimately, I think it's going to be a tough season for Barca potentially. Made a few new signings, Depay being one of them, who I think is an excellent signing. I think he could do really good stuff for Barcelona next season. Aguero, who's out injured now for a large part of the early sections of the month. And apart from that, Eric Garcia as well, who I don't think is going to be available for Barca because of his involvement in the Olympics. But it could be a tough season for Barca. Maybe not on the pitch, but off the pitch financially, it's looking like it's going to be a real struggle for them. They still need to get rid of players. Already talking about maybe getting rid of Umtiti and Pjanic, Coutinho, to name a few of those players that need to get out of the door just to balance the books. And I think Barcelona this season, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. I think they've got a good team. Griezmann, Depay are all good players. But ultimately, is the issues off the pitch going to affect the team on the pitch? And I mean, what a test this is going to be. The first test of the season. Coming up against Real Sociedad. Real Sociedad, of course, having a brilliant season last year. Made it to the latter stage of the Europa League. Lost to Manchester United, of course. Did very, very well last season again in La Liga. They've got quality players across the pitch. You've got Isaac, of course, who was linked with moves everywhere after a very, very good Euro 2020. 21 years of age. Just signed a new contract recently with Celta Vigo. And as you can see, last season, of course, scoring 17 goals in 30 games for Real Sociedad in La Liga. Very, very good season for him. No doubt if he continues to grow as a player in La Liga, there are going to be some very, very big clubs calling for him in the near future. They've got Porto as well, another player who I think is quality on his day, 29 years of age. Joined them a few years ago from Girona. I think you properly pronounce it. Everybody says Girona, but pronounce it properly. Girona. 29 years of age, got a lot of pace about him. Very, very quick. Can play the left hand side, can play on the right hand side, can play through the middle and as a striker if you need him to. Very, very versatile player. His history at Sociedad last season only got himself, I'm saying only, 7 goals and 8 assists, which I think is a very good return for a player who did come on 10 times from the bench And even at Girona, 9 goals in 33 games for a side which had arguably been under a lot of pressure in the Liga a few years ago. A very, very good return from a player who I think is quality. And that will be a big test for them. Barcelona Sociedad, big game that will be. A lot of players out for both sides. Sociedad, of course, signing Matt Ryan from Brighton on a free deal. Barcelona, they're going to be missing Dembele, ter Stegen, Fati, Mingueza, Aguero, De Jong, Eric Garcia. They're missing a lot of players, so you can see that they're quite depleted in terms of the squad. Neto being in goal, Sergio Roberto playing in midfield, Braithwaite up top. It's a very, I'd probably say the weakest you could probably get Barcelona. But look, they've got a lot of pressure on their shoulders right now. And of course, a lot of that pressure can be quite clearly seen with the transfer business that they've done as well. But very quickly, before we talk through that transfer business, Joshua Billingsley, how are we doing? How are you all, good mates? But have you heard Sunderland have signed someone from West Ham? Who've they signed? You'll have to tell us in the chat. Gav saying Chelsea will be the champions this season. We'll have to see. And then Kat saying no way Grealish is anywhere near worth 117 million, max 30 mil, only because he's English and that huge tax. And don't get me started with Kane with the 160 mil evaluation. I'd have probably said Grealish was worth about 50 million quid. With the way that the market is these days, money-wise, every transfer is becoming more and more expensive. But I think he's probably worth... It depends, as Aston Villa said in their video, they valued the player at 100 million. And if somebody values him at that same price, then obviously they're going to pay the clause. I think he's probably worth... I'd probably say more than £50 million, to be honest with you. But again, as you said, obviously with him being English tax always comes into play. So there is that. But very quickly, looking at Barcelona's business, more about the players out the door. They've only let Elena, Todibo and Firpo out the door. Of course, Messi as well going on a free, which just looks so wrong to see Messi going to PSG on a free transfer. But apart from that, they need to let players go and fast. They need to let go of Coutinho. They need to let go of Pjanic, Umtiti, and a couple of other players here and there. So Barcelona over the next 2 weeks have got a lot of business to do, and they need to do that business very, very quickly, or they could face a lot of bad financial implications even after the window is shut. And of course, talking about the window, there's still 2 weeks left of the window to come. We will, of course, try and update you with what's happening on a transfer deadline day. As we said before, usually on deadline day, we're all together. But because the way that the season is, because everything is now back to normal and the season has started at the usual time, it technically means everything is kind of being pushed back a month. So this time last month, we would have been doing, I think, the Champions League qualifiers and things like that in September. We're already going to be at the group stages in September. So, of course, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. But that, I'm pretty sure, is everything we need to talk about on Around the World in 80 minutes. And we are literally about to hit the 80-minute mark of the show. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Don't forget, as always, you can leave a like and a subscription on the channel if you are new to the stream. It would be very, very greatly appreciated indeed. Our Twitter is at _top corner. Do go follow us on there if you are new and you want to find out when we do go live. Instagram is the _sports corner _ as well. Do check out our Instagram. We'll always post on them when we go live too. And our website is the sports-corner.com. It's not been updated much recently, but if you want to go on there and see some of the articles that some of the guys have written up, they do go on there if you want to see everything that's going on there. Very quickly though, Gav did say, the Barcelona new signings can't play in La Liga because they can't register them yet due to the wage bill, Josh. They just registered them today, Gav. From what I heard this morning, they got registered because PK took a wage cut. So I think they've been registered in time. But that might have changed, to be fair, since we were last live. But big thank you to you all. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Around the World in 80 minutes. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and a subscription on the channel. This is something I want to do a lot more while we don't do watch-alongs. As I said before, there's going to be plenty more new content coming onto the channel over the next few weeks while there are no watch-alongs. Don't forget, as I said before, there isn't going to be a great deal of watch-alongs, if any, until around about September time because we haven't got not the financial capabilities. That's Barcelona that haven't got them. We haven't got the streaming capabilities to watch the games which makes it just a little bit harder to do watch-alongs because we'd be watching them on perfectly legal streams. But no, joking aside, as I said, this is something I'm hoping that this will cover that large amount of time over August and September, where we can go over the games each week. We could talk through matches from across European football and the big games like the Arsenal-Brentford match. So as I said, if you do like it, don't forget to leave a like and subscription. Plenty more new shows to come. There's going to be a brand new show coming soon called The Morning After. I think it's what I'm looking into doing, where we'll go over one game the morning after that game and really delve into it and analyse it. But what we are looking to do is bring more analytical shows to the channel. As I said, Hugh Wizzy, Statman Dave type shows where we really delve into topics a little bit more deeper than we would do on a watch-along. But as for now, that is it for the show. We'll be back again with Around the World in 80 minutes, probably at some point midweek, where we'll go over some of the midweek fixtures potentially across the 5 main leagues in football. Don't forget to leave a like and subscription. Enjoy the games at 3 o'clock. You can see on the bottom of your screen some of those games going on today. But otherwise, have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. I haven't said that in a long time. And hopefully we'll see you a lot more on the Sports Corner over the next season. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to be a fun one. See you later.